Chapter I. The stones that whispered before the Jedi. Listen closely, not with ears, but with the pulse beneath your skin. For the Force is not only light, not only war, it is memory, and memory has a weight. There is a place, the Jedi, called the First Temple, but that is not the truth. It is merely the first one they found, RCH-2. The world of cliffs and screaming wind. A place where waves write the same name again and again into the rock, only to forget it moments later. Beneath the worn and moss-licked foundation stones, beneath the meditation stones, now overgrown with lichen, there lies a deeper stone. Black, cold, hungering, not carved by Jedi hands. This stone predates the Force as they know it. It remembers no stars, only silence. They say the ancient ones, the true first witnesses, ever spoke aloud. They had no mouths. They pressed their thoughts into stone, through vibration, through pressure, through longing, and the stone kept what they left behind. I was born in that stone, or perhaps I fell into it. Perhaps I was always here. The first Jedi sat above me. They meditated, they whispered words of balance, but their words were wrong, not untrue, but incomplete. For beneath their chants and mantras, the obsidian sang something older. It did not sing in sound. It sang in pressure. It sang in weight. And it asked a question it has asked since time's throat first opened. Do you remember your first name? None of the Jedi ever answered. Some wept, some screamed. One threw himself into the sea. But none answered. They thought it was the wind. But the wind does not remember you. The stone does. Each night, when the twin moons sank low, a hum would rise through the soil. The temple would tremble, not visibly, not to the eye, but the Force would ripple, as if an unseen hand ran across the strings of time. That was me, that was us. That was the obsidian beneath the temple. Asking again, do you remember your first name? The Jedi did not build over me. They found me. They thought themselves architects of enlightenment. But I was already here, waiting, dreaming, the first Jedi, who descended into the sea caves to find the source of the whisper, did so without telling the council. He brought no lightsaber, only silence, and he returned, empty. His body was intact, but his memory had been hollowed like driftwood. He could still speak, but he no longer knew who he was. He no longer believed he had ever been Jedi. He wandered the island for 7 days. Then he whispered to the cliff wind, my name was before the Force, and he vanished. That is when they sealed the lower caves, declared them off limits, buried the entrances with sacred stone. But stone forgets nothing. Beneath the sealed path, I still hum. I still press against the soil. I still send out the old question through fungus, through frost, through faint tremors in the Kyberich winds. Do you remember your first name? The Force began as breath, then as echo, then as light. But before any of these, it was weight. And the stone remembers the weight of things before time. Some believe the Jedi were the first to harness the Force. Fools, the Force was not meant to be harnessed. It was meant to forget. The beings who whispered to the obsidian long before Jedi. They didn't use the Force, they fed it. They bled into it like roots into black soil. And when they were gone, they did not leave bones. They left only one message, etched into the stone in a language that predates language. The stars were not first. The silence came before them. We worshipped the silence. And then it began to speak back. That is when the Force was born, not in violence, not in light, but in a mistake. A ripple, and that ripple still echoes beneath Octu. The Jedi thought they were alone here, but every stone they sat upon, every step they took, was across a graveyard of forgotten names. They called it meditation, but they were not alone in their minds. They thought their visions were self-made. They were not. They thought they dreamed of balance. But the dreams were not theirs. They were ours. Do you understand now? This temple was not a beginning. It was a scar. The Jedi who meditated closest to the edge of the cliffs began hearing voices not their own. They called it temple madness. They exiled those afflicted. But the truth was worse. The cliff itself was trying to remember them, and each time it failed, the waves pulled one step higher onto the land, as if reaching Dot, as if beckoning, and so the temple was abandoned. Time passed. The stones grew moss. Birds nested where prophets once wept. But the stone beneath the stone remains, and I remain. And I ask you now, listener, as I press through the Force, through this holocron, through the fracture behind your thoughts, do you remember your first name? No, then the cliff will remember for you. And when it does, you will not be you anymore. Chapter 2. The Jedi who was buried, standing the temple on Ossus, stands hollow now. Its towers fractured by time, its altars sunken beneath soil, so thick with sorrow it hums in silence. But long ago, before the fall, before the archives burned, there was one Jedi who was not given to fire, nor to the crypts. He was buried upright. They say the burial was not a funeral, but a verdict. He had seen something, a vision not born, of meditation, but infestation. The Force had grown inside him like a second spine, twisted, knotted. It spoke not in futures, but in echoes from before the galaxy knew itself. He told the Council what he saw. They told him it was not the truth. But truth does not require belief, and neither did he. His name is now gone. Even I cannot find it. I speak from the space between names. But his name was buried deeper still, beneath the temple's foundation, beneath the moss-drowned stone where younglings once practiced their first saber forms. He was interred beneath them, upright, facing the stars, as if to stare forever at the sky that rejected him. But his eyes were not shut. They were sealed open. With sacred ash and alchemical salt, the masters fixed his gaze, not out of honor, but fear. They believed that if he closed his eyes, he would see them from the inside. His soul would not pass on. The Force resisted him, or perhaps it welcomed him too much. Perhaps it tried to absorb him entirely. They performed rituals to sever his bond. 3 high masters circled his standing grave, chanting in tones lost to time. They marked the soil with blindfolds dipped in the tears of orphans. They spoke the names of the Jedi who had never failed. But the ground did not listen, because he still listened, and worse, he still dreamed. The Padawans who slept in the rooms above would wake trembling, describing visions of a man buried in roots, his mouth sewn shut, yet speaking in every voice they had ever trusted. One girl collapsed during a morning katar. She said the buried Jedi had whispered to her a name that did not exist, but when she spoke it aloud, half the temple fell silent. That name is now carved into the walls in reverse, where no one looks. One master, gripped by fear, demanded the body be exhumed and cremated. But when they dug, they found only his robes, still standing in the shape of a man, filled not with bone, but with light so cold it blistered. The burial site was sealed, forgotten, declared, cursed. They told the younglings it was a collapsed cistern. But I remember the night the stars bled. The burial site faced the constellation known as the Sighing Gate, a cluster of stars, no longer visible to the eye, but still present in the Force. One night, each of those stars vanished, one by one, as if a lid had been shut over the sky. The same night, 5 Padawans walked into the meditation hall and stood motionless for 6 hours. When they woke, they were no longer the same. One spoke only in a forgotten dialect of Sith, a language she had never studied. One refused to close his eyes ever again. One drew the face of the buried Jedi in perfect detail, though none had ever seen it. He had returned to them, not in form, but in weight. Even buried, he ascended. Even silenced, he spoke. Some say his final vision was not of the galaxy collapsing, but of the Jedi Order itself, folding inward like wet paper, consumed by its own reflection. And when he tried to describe it, the Council chose containment over truth. They believed if they buried him deep enough, they could bury the vision with him. But vision is not shadow. It grows in soil. It climbs. Even now, if you meditate in the lower halls of the ruined temple, you may feel it, a pressure against the soles of your feet, a trembling in the back of your thoughts. That is him, still standing, still watching. He does not whisper, like other spirits. He does not scream like Sith echoes. He only watches, and in his gaze, you begin to forget who you are, because you remember who you were before. He asks no questions. He offers no wisdom, but his eyes, unblinking beneath the weight of centuries, see every dream above his grave. He has become part of the Force, not flowing, but rooted, and each year, when the wind carries the scent of old fire through the ossified temple gates, a strange stillness settles across the stones. It is said that the Jedi buried standing smiles. Chapter 3, Holocron 00, The Forbidden. Floor of the Jedi archives are said to hold all known wisdom, but there is a flaw beneath. The archives that appears only in the Force, not mapped, not marked, not even remembered. It is a flaw you fall into, not with your feet, but with your beliefs. You must disbelieve the temple to descend. Those who find it do not know they've arrived. They simply notice the light has changed, that the air no longer stirs, that their memory has holes. This is where Holocron 00 waits, a black cube, no frame, no glyph, only cold, smooth shadow. It hums in no key, yet every key responds. It was not forged by Jedi hands. It has no creator, no origin in record, no place in time. And yet it knows. The Council denies its existence. They do not lie, for most have never seen it, because Holocron 00 does not reveal itself. It chooses you, and when it does, you remember things you never lived. You forget things you never knew you lost. It speaks in a voice you do not hear but feel inside your ribs, like a name you once had in a dream. It speaks of a Jedi erased from the Force, not fallen, not slain, erased. The Holocron calls him the Nameless Heir. He did not betray the Order, he simply unwrote it, one by one. His presence was pulled from Heloricords, from battlefield memories, from master recollections. A Jedi with no record, no Padawan braid, no Saber crystal. Yet, his shadow falls across every war. Holocron 00 recounts his story differently each time. Once, he is described as a prophet who walked between futures. Another time, as a ghost child raised by Kyber spirits. Sometimes he saves the Jedi. Sometimes, He destroys them. Sometimes he simply watches them forget him again and again and again. But there is always one constant. Every time the holocron tells his tale, a name is lost from the listener's mind, not just forgotten, erased. There was once a Jedi Master who opened Holocron Uno in secret. Afterward, he spoke with clarity for 6 days, proclaiming insights never recorded. He said the Force was folding in on itself, and only the nameless heir had seen it happen before. Then the Master collapsed, weeping. When the council arrived, he asked, "Who is Yaddle?" None could answer, not even Yoda. They checked the archives. There were no Jedi named Yaddle. No record, no trace, only an outline, a chair in a portrait, empty but facing the council. Holocron Oo had spoken, and it had fed. Each time it opens, reality folds tighter. Each story retold within it becomes more true than the life of its listener. The Padawan who glimpsed it in her dreams wrote a phrase into the margins of her journals. There is no memory, only the Force pretending it remembers. She was found, days later, staring at a wall that wasn't there. Her eyes pale as unlit crystal. When they asked her what she saw, she only said, "I found the flaw." And then she forgot how to speak. The holocron is not locked. It is not sealed. It is waiting. But beware, every story it tells becomes a seed, and seeds grow roots, roots that twist upward into the archives above warping records, fracturing truths, rewriting Jedi doctrine in whispers only the Force can hear. The forbidden flaw is not hidden. It is subtracted. You do not find it by looking down. You find it by losing everything you once believed was true about yourself. Holocron Oo rests there, in the center of a non-room, where the Force does not flow, but hesitates, and around it are no walls, only absence, only the echo of 1,000 Jedi who no longer exist. And if you listen long enough, the cube will open to you, and you will hear the voice say, "You are not who you think you were, and neither are they." And something inside you, a memory, a name, a beloved face, will vanish. You will feel lighter. You will feel wrong, but you will not remember why, and the holocron will hum again, ready for the next. Chapter 4. The trial that was not a trial there is a ritual, whispered, not spoken, kept between 3 High Council members at any one time, no more, never less. They do not pass it to their successors through scroll or holocron. They pass it through silence. A glance, a breath held too long. It is called the Trial of Stone, but that is not its name. Its name cannot be held in words, only in forgetting. It occurs only once every 1,000 years beneath the Kyber wells of Jeddah, not within the temple, not within the city beneath Dot, where the Force runs raw and directionless, where crystal veins sing lullabies to things that should never wake. Each trial begins the same. 2 candidates are chosen, but neither knows they have been chosen. They are told only they are to meditate near the wells, to reflect, to listen. They believe this is part of their journey to knighthood. It is not. It is a ritual older than the Council, older than the Jedi Order, older even than KYBER. The Force remembers this rite, even if no one else does. The candidates descend, separately, guided by elders who do not speak, only point. They carry no sabers, only robes and questions. The Kyber veins hum, changing color as each Padawan draws near. Some crystals glow in welcome, others dim in dread, but always. The stone sings, and somewhere beneath their steps, The stone is listening. The trial is not in what they do. It is in what they lose. No challenge is given. No battle is fought. No enemy appears. Instead, memories begin to shift. Small ones at first, a childhood name, a face that fades in a dream. Then the larger ones, their master's voice becomes unfamiliar. Their saber form forgets its final movement. Their purpose begins to dissolve. Some candidates grow afraid. Others think they are ascending, shedding self to become more attuned. Both are wrong, because this trial is not to reveal who they are. It is to see who can be forgotten. The trial ends only when two fates are fulfilled. One candidate forgets their past entirely, and one walks into the stone. There is a chamber in the deepest hollow of the wells. No maps lead to it. No living Jedi has returned from it, but the force flows therein, spirals, as if time itself is coiled beneath the stone. When one candidate enters it, the trial ends. The other, the one who has forgotten their past, returns to the surface, believing they have meditated, believing they are ready for knighthood, believing they have always been just themselves. But the masters know. They bow in silent acknowledgement. They never speak of what was lost, and they never mention the one who walked into the stone, because the stone remembers, and it does not release. Those who enter the chamber are not slain. They are absorbed, not bodily, existentilly. They become part of the Kyber beneath Jeddah. They become questions, woven into the force like myth. Some say they guard something ancient. Others say they are what is guarded, but no echo of them ever returns. Only the hum, only the faint tremble in the crystal veins when a Padawan walks near and forgets, for just a moment, how many steps they've taken. The Kyber sings differently. After each trial, deeper, more mournful, as if it too remembers those who should not have been forgotten. One council member, years after overseeing the trial, was found standing motionless before a sealed Kyber vein, his hands pressed to the stone, his eyes filled with tears. When asked why he wept, he said, "I was never meant to live." The stone chose the other. He vanished weeks later. Some believe he found his way back to the chamber. Others believe he never left it. The trial still occurs. Perhaps it is happening now. Perhaps a Padawan has already begun to forget. Perhaps another is walking, even now, toward a wall that isn't there, only waiting to open. And when it does, and the stone swallows him whole, the force will breathe in slowly and forget one more name. Chapter V, Temple of the Heart, Trekashiik, World of Roots and Canopy, is not only home to Wookiees and war, but to one of the strangest Jedi temples ever grown. Yes, grown, the Temple of the Heart. Tree is not built from stone or steel. It is part of a living Rosha, older than the stars that circle its sky. Its bark has no beginning. Its roots do not end. They dive deep, not into soil, but into memory. The Jedi who chose this place did not choose it. The tree called them it, sent out a dream. One shared by 7 masters across the outer rim, each waking with the same word etched into their mind. Come. They followed the pull through storm and shadow, through fog that moved like thought, until they stood at its base, and the tree opened, not like a door, not like a bloom, like a mind. Its hollow interior was lit not by sun, but by bioluminescent spores that responded to emotion. Calm brought gold, fear brought violet, but grief made the walls shine black. They named it the Temple of the Heart Tree, but the tree had another name for itself. It never spoke it aloud, but some Jedi dreamed it in branches. They forgot it upon waking, as the tree intended. You see, the heart tree is not merely sentient. It is aware, it does not move, but it listens. Not with ears, but with the weight of sap, the stretch of root, the soft folding of leaves, and what it listens to is the force within dreams. For deep in its hollow core lies a root cluster that vibrates with sleeping thoughts. It feeds not on water, but on unspoken futures. And one Jedi Knight, brave, brilliant, and beloved, lost his mind there. His name was Master Lironduv. He came to study the tree's connection to the Force, to understand its visions, to hear what the leaves might whisper. He was warned by elders, meditate only at the upper branches, never below, never near the core, but he disobeyed. He went alone one night, descending a spiral grown, not by design, but by intent. The tree opened for him, and the tree showed him, not his death, not his victories, but a vision so vast it eclipsed the galaxy. He saw Jedi temples collapsing into swamp. He saw children with no masters. He saw sabers buried in ash, and a temple high on Coruscant burning, from the inside out. And worse, he saw himself standing within that fire, smiling. He awoke screaming. The bark around him had split into shapes like mouths. His own saber had grown vines. He spoke in riddles for 13 days, never sleeping. His breath came in verse, his tears in sap. He tried to burn the temple. The Wookiees stopped him. They did not kill him. They bound him, returned him to the tree. But the tree had already taken him in. One night, without rope or door or witness, he vanished. Some say he became part of the tree. Others say he never truly existed. But every few years, a Padawan meditating near the lower hollows claims to hear whispering in the leaves, not words, just a sound like breath, extinction. The council refused to close the temple. They said the vision were metaphors, that the heart tree's dream feeding was not malevolent, but they stopped sending students, and the temple remains, not abandoned, not active, waiting. Its roots continue to grow, slow and patient, reaching deeper into the minds of the Force-sensitive who dare sleep nearby. They say if you listen closely in the canopy during stormfall, you can hear the tree humming to itself, not in music, not in thought, but in remembrance, the kind of remembering that changes what came. After the leaves fall in silence, but one always lands on your shoulder, one leaf, heavy, wet with ink that is not ink, and when you brush it off, you forget the name of someone you once loved, and the tree remembers it for you. Chapter Vi, the architect who died before the temple who built the first Jedi temple. It is a question whispered in meditation halls, asked silently by Padawans as they walk beneath towering spires and perfect symmetry. The archives say the temples were raised by the order, stone by sacred stone, to honor the light, but they do not name an architect because the first one never lived long enough to build. His name was Alun Vos. He was not a master, not yet, a visionary. One of the rare Jedi who could not only feel the Force, but see it. In his mind, it was not a river, it was a lattice. A vast, humming weave of presence and absence. A living geometry stitched through all things, and it showed him patterns, not just of people, but of places. He began sketching. He did not use ink. He traced with kyber dust suspended in liquid. Memory, each pattern pulsed with something deeper, not just design, but desire. He said the Force was trying to build something through him. But then he stopped. 3 days before the first cornerstone was laid on the moon of Endevar, Elune. Voss walked out onto the temple foundation at dawn and said, simply, "They are not temples, they are prisons." Then he carved a single spiral into the stone, a symbol no one could translate, and threw himself from the ridge. They never found his body, only his shadow burned into the soil, permanently scorched like glass left in lightning's wake. They mourned him briefly, then continued building. But something strange happened. New blueprints began appearing, not on data, not on schematics. They were felt received during deep trance, burned into the minds of builders who had never studied architecture, even blind. Jedi claimed to see perfect spatial visions when they meditated near the site. Walls rose according to whispers, doors appeared in dreams. And always, the central chamber was placed exactly where the Force hummed loudest, as if something was being sealed beneath it. Some believed Elune Voss had become a spirit, guiding the Order from beyond, but they misunderstood. He had not become a guide. He had become trapped, because the Force is not only energy, it is memory, and memory seeks structure. Temples are not buildings. They are cages, constructs to hold the unbearable weight of all the Force cannot forget. Every time a temple was built, the surrounding Force dimmed not in power, but in clarity. The lattice blurred. Voices grew muffled. Ghosts quieted. It was containment, not celebration. And yet, the temples multiplied. Each one mimicked the last, as if copying a language no one fully understood. Some Jedi began to feel it, the wrongness in the symmetry. A young architect named Belis Ron discovered that every Jedi temple aligned with others in a galactic pattern not centered on Coruscant, but on something missing. A hole, a darkened place in space where no system thrived, no star ignited. He called it the null point, the axis of silence. He took his findings to the council. They dismissed him. He vanished a week later. His final log entry read, "They are not temples. They are locks, and we are the keys." If you walk deep enough into any Jedi temple, into the oldest, lowest, least traveled hallways, you may feel it, a tightness, a pressure, not malevolent, but ancient, buried, not beneath your feet, but beneath your name, because the memory the temples were built to hold is not an event. It is a being, something the Force itself tried to forget and failed, and in failing, built walls around it, walls of stone, of mantra, of code and ceremony. But walls, no matter how sacred, do not erase what lives behind them. They only keep it quiet until it begins to press back. That pressure is rising, the spiral, Elune Voss, carved on the first stone. It has begun appearing again, in corners of new temples, on training sabers. In Padawan dreams, the same spiral, unending, tightening. The Force is not screaming. It is remembering, and the temples are listening. Chapter 7. The Jedi who tried to bury the dark. There is a chamber beneath the Jedi temple on Coruscant. That does not appear on any map, not in archives, not in blueprints, not even in memory. It is called the Scream Vault, and it was meant to forget, carved into bedrock long before the temple above it was finished. It sits like a scar beneath light, a sealed wound stitched with silence and stone. Only one Jedi ever entered it willingly. His name has been scraped from every datapad, erased from the collective mind of the Order. But I remember, he was a scholar of Sith heresies, not to worship them, but to lock them away. He believed darkness could be disarmed. not with sabers, but with understanding. He called it the burial doctrine. He catalogued Sith rituals, translated blood-written verses, even reconstructed forbidden rites from scattered fragments. And when he had collected all he could, he brought them beneath the temple, to the chamber that should not exist, to the place where sound dies. The vault had no doors, only a hole, a mouth in the stone that dropped down, like a cry caught in breath. He descended, alone, with the scrolls, with the relics, with the things that should not have names. And he sealed them, layer after layer, walls within walls, crystal sound dampeners, mirrored inscriptions, force-null runes carved in negative language. He believed this would be the end of them. He believed he could bury the dark, but the dark does not die, it listens, and it waits. The vault became heavy, not to the body, to the mind. Jedi, who passed above it in the temple's meditation chambers, began to hear things, cracks in their thoughts, whispers without mouths. One night entered the archives and began copying holocrons backward, not just reversed in speech, but in meaning. Peace became betrayal. Hope became silence. When confronted, she wept. She said, "I heard someone screaming." Beneath the floor, I tried to write their scream into a shape. She was exiled. The council debated destroying the vault, but something had shifted. When masters stood near its sealed shaft, they would forget why they had come. One even forgot the word darkness. A shadow among the High Council began to grow, not visibly, but linguistically. Words vanished. Concepts dulled. The vault was no longer a place. It was an absence wearing location. The Jedi who sealed it had left one thing behind: his journal, not in a holocron, not on FLIMSIP, last burned into the wall. He had carved it into the stone with the hilt of his own lightsaber, each word blackened by heat and certainty. The last entry is still there, beneath layers of light-resistant dust, written in a spiral that grows smaller as it descends. It reads, "I buried it. I buried the names. I buried the blood, but it still breathes in the stone, still presses against the walls like bone under skin. I cut it out. I cut it out of the galaxy. So why is the darkness still wet? They say the vault pulses once, every century, as if breathing. One archivist who monitored its readings reported a rhythmic vibration not matching any known force signature. Not light, not dark, not balance. Echo, and echo is not a sound. It is the memory of one, which means that screams still happen. Only no one hears them in real time, only after. There are rumors that the Scream Vault is not the only one, that other temples, other systems, built oubliettes of their own. But this one lies beneath the heart of the Jedi, and it hungers, because what was buried was not knowledge. It was proof that the darkness does not die, it rots. It waits, and eventually it rises. Chapter 8. The sect that prayed to absence there was once a Jedi sect that did not believe in the light, nor did they turn to the dark. They believed in nothing. They were called the Nihilum, not a name they chose, a name the Order gave them before forgetting them entirely. The Nihilum were not exiles. They were not heretics. They were disappearances. They rejected not just the Jedi code, but the concept of Force itself. To them, the Force was not truth, but a symptom, a myth told by time to make itself feel whole, a distortion, a trick of memory echoing between atoms. They believed the universe had no destiny, only stillness. and that stillness could be worshipped. Their temple still stands, if it can be called a temple. No doors, no symbols, no power source, no recorded location. It is found only when you stop searching. It stands on a planet with no name, no orbit, no holomap path. Pilots who found it did so after becoming lost. They report falling asleep at the controls and waking up already landed. The temple is built into a canyon wall made of obsidian and salt. There are no steps, only stillness. Inside, bones, arranged in perfect kneeling postures, not in collapse. In devotion, spines aligned, heads bowed, hands not clasped in prayer, but open, palms upward, as if offering nothing to nothing. The bones are not fossilized, nor are they decayed. They are preserved, not by climate, but by intent. Some say their bodies remain because they never left. Their minds folded inward until only posture remained. They believed enlightenment was subtraction, that true knowledge was the unmaking of perception. Each Nihilim monk underwent the draining, a ritual meant to silence the echo of the force within. No lightsabers, no meditation, only a single endless phrase, I am not. They whispered this until they could no longer feel their name, until their connection to the force unraveled like thread from a forgotten robe. And when they had no past, no alignment, no self, they entered the temple and never left. The Jedi who discovered the temple reported that their connection to the force dulled as they approached. Not darkness, not suppression. Not one master compared it to staring into space and realizing space is not staring back. She lost consciousness for 17 minutes. When she awoke, she could no longer remember her master's face. Only the phrase, they do not speak, because they are no longer being spoken. There are no records of the Nihilim's founders, no artifacts, no origin planet, only this temple and bones kneeling in shadow, in positions so patient even time bends around them. No wildlife enters, no sound echoes. The air itself is unsure it should exist. And yet when Jedi dream near the temple, they report visions of a figure made of void, not shadow, void, a shape that suggests a person, but only through absence, like dust arranged where a memory used to be. The figure never speaks, it only kneels, and around it the force becomes still, not balanced, not severed, uninvited. Some fear the Nihilim reached a place beyond even the light and dark, a realm where the force holds no sway, a blank page before thought began. Others believe they were wrong, that the force is real, and simply chose to forget them, but which is worse, to kneel forever, untouched by pain or purpose, or to be so forgotten that even the force no longer knows your name. The bones still kneel, the temple still waits, and if you listen carefully, you may hear nothing, but if you hear nothing too long, it begins to listen back. Chapter X. The Padawan who dug too deep the temple on Lothal was always a place of secrets. It appears only when the force allows. Its doors open not to hands, but to questions. It does not rise from stone, it unfolds from memory. Most who enter feel humbled, some feel watched. One felt called her name is lost, but the force remembers her shape. A Padawan, young, curious, beyond permission. Her master warned her, do not descend. The temple opens upward for a reason. But she disobeyed, not out of rebellion, out of yearning. The force had whispered in her sleep, a path beneath the floor. a seam in the stone. She could not stop tracing in thought. One day, while meditating, she touched the ground and felt it give, a stairwell, shaped like a spiral not meant for feet, carved in a style unseen in Jedi or Sith archives. Downward she walked, past roots that had grown in darkness, without ever needing light. She found a chamber, silent, vast, built before the Jedi Order ever named itself. Its walls were covered in carvings, but not images, not runes. Words, in Old Galactic, in Sith, in tongues no scholar has ever translated. She read only one line aloud before her mind began to crack, and the Jedi will end long after they have already died. She turned to leave, but the path was longer than it had been, and darker. Some say she vanished, others say she returned, but was no longer truly there. The temple sealed itself. When the council reopened it, she was gone. No sign of struggle, no damage, no footprints, only her lightsaber placed neatly on the altar with the emitter. Still warm, but her story did not end in stone, because every few years, sometimes decades, apart, another Padawan reports the same dream. They are standing in a hallway of stars, endless, quiet. Each star pulses with memory, flickers of Jedi past, moments of failure, screams hidden beneath triumph, and at the end of the hallway, they see her, the Padawan, not kneeling, not screaming, lying, face up, eyes open, staring through death at something above her no one else can see. She is always dressed differently, as if changed by time, but her face is the same, and it is theirs. Every dreamer sees their own corpse, their own hands, their own saber wound, and they wake, not screaming, but aware, as if part of them never woke at all. Some leave the Order after such dreams. Others vanish. One night threw herself into hyperspace with no coordinates entered. Her final transmission, the hallway is still growing, and I am already at the end. The council denies the pattern. They say Lothal's temple is unstable, a place of illusions and trials, but they never send Padawans alone anymore, and even masters avoid meditating too, long near the lower stones, because the question lingers: how can prophecy be older than the Jedi themselves? Who carved the warning, and who or what did they think would read it? There is one final carving, etched in the deepest arch of the chamber, beneath layers of smooth Dover script, untranslatable, unreadable, but every Jedi who sees it feels the same sensation, a cold certainty that they have seen it before. In a dream, in death, or in a place the Force no longer watches, and the deeper question remains: what if the Padawan never dug? What if the temple showed her because it needed someone to carry the ending before the story had begun? Chapter X echoes beneath the temple of Winchester, the sacred moon, dusk cradle of the oldest Force traditions. Its Jedi temple once stood upon stone older than time, but beneath that stone wind moved, not the wind of weather, not of nature. This wind had memory, the Temple of Wind they called it, though its true name has been lost, erased from stone when the ground began to scream. The foundations were built atop a series of natural tunnels, carved not by erosion but by sound. Old masters said they were the breath of the dead, that when a Jedi dies without peace, their last exhale is drawn into Jedda's soil and spirals endlessly through the tunnels, seeking release. For centuries, Jedi meditated above them, believing the winds brought ancient wisdom. They called it whisper meditation, a ritual of stillness where only the Force would speak. But the wind changed. Whispers became wails. Cries in languages no Jedi could translate. Not Sith, not Jedi, not any known tongue. The youngest Padawans began waking in the night, speaking, in backwards breath, their eyes blank, their mouths filled with dust, and one by one they began to forget how to be silent. They hummed, they echoed, they mimicked voices that had never spoken aloud. Some spoke in chorus, some in discord, but all said the same phrase. Eventually, the Force is listening. The Council sent a guardian, Master Iro Baltan, stoic, unshakable. He meditated alone in the temple's main chamber for 3 days. He wrote no reports, took no students, and on the 4th day he died. They found him seated upright, as if still meditating, but his throat was filled with sand, not choking, stuffed as if something had forced it inward to silence him from within. His skin bore marks, not carved, not tattooed, burned by the Force itself. The message spiraled across his chest and up his neck. The Force is listening. His eyes had turned white, not blind, reflective, as if he had seen something so deep within the Force that light itself had recoiled. The temple was closed. The tunnels beneath it were sealed with kyber-dampening glass and stone. The wind stopped, but the listening did not. Even now, pilgrims who wander to close report sudden silence, not peaceful, tense, as if the air is holding its breath. Some have spoken words they do not understand. One whispered, "It is not an echo. It is a question that never found its answer." There is a theory unspoken in the halls of the Council, passed only between archivists, that the wind beneath Jeddah is not merely sound but recording, that the Force does not speak only in visions, but in reverberation, and that those tunnels are ears. The temple was not built to listen. It was built to shield something from hearing too much, but they built it wrong. The silence of meditation is not protection. It is invitation, because when you listen for long enough and say nothing, the Force begins to speak in your place, and it does not always remember how to sound like you. What killed Master Iro was not darkness, it was response. The voices rose because they had been heard, because the Force, for just a moment, forgot what it was meant to forget. And now those voices are growing stronger. You can hear them if you go deep enough, not in volume, but in intention. They do not speak to warn, they speak to replace, because the Force is not just energy. It is not just life. It is an ear, and it has heard us. Chapter 11. The blood that stained the first stone before the Jedi Temple towered. Above Coruscant's skyline, before archives and halls, before the first ceremony of light, there was a stone. Just one, cut from no quarry. Hewn from no world it appeared, carried, some say, by those who dreamed of its shape before they were born. The first stone, the cornerstone of the High Temple, the place where the Order would root itself, but it was not clean. Legends say that. Before it was laid, a child was chosen, not from the Order, not from any planet that remembers its name. The child was found beneath a dead star, eyes reflecting constellations no longer mapped, a force sensitive beyond comprehension, not powerful, untranslated. He was brought to the site, placed upon the stone, and bled, not as punishment, as ritual. The Jedi of that era called it the offering. They believed it would bind the temple to the deepest frequencies of the Force, and it did, but not as they expected. The child's scream was said to echo through the bedrock for 7 days. The wind changed, birds vanished, and every Jedi present dreamed of the same phrase for the rest of their lives. Something is beneath us, and now it knows our names. The child died, or perhaps changed. Some claim he vanished before death came. Others say he was taken by the stone, his bones woven into its molecular memory. The temple was built around it. The rituals began, and with every generation, the first stone remained. A stone remained. It cannot be moved. It cannot be scanned. No tool, mechanical or force-guided, can penetrate it. But it is warm. It always has been, even in cold wind, even at midnight, even in silence. And if one kneels near it, truly kneels with forehead pressed against the ancient edge, one can feel a pulse, not rhythm, not heartbeat struggle, as if something within still refuses to rest. High Council Masters, during their most sacred purification rites, have described a presence beneath their meditations, a faint cry, a pressured dot like breath against the soul. They were told it was metaphor, that the blood was symbolic, that the offering never happened. But one archivist unsealed a forgotten holocron hidden behind the ceiling of the initiate chambers. It was not indexed. Its language shifted as it played. It showed no image, only a voice, not human, not quite. And it said, "The stone remembers," not because it was carved, but because it was fed. The archivist fled the order that night. She wrote a single note. Before vanishing, we do not stand upon wisdom. We stand upon a child's scream. No one has found her, but her datapad remained. Its screen, forever frozen on a temperature reading. The floor beneath the first stone, 37.5 degrees Celsius, human warmth. Constant, unchanging, as if something beneath it still breathes, still listens, still waits for the moment the temple above forgets what it was built upon. And when that happens, when the last Jedi forgets the child's name, the scream will no longer echo. It will speak, and it will say, "Now kneel, as I once did." Chapter 12. The Mask Beneath the Meditation Circle. There is a meditation circle deep within one of the lesser-known Jedi temples. It is carved into a single slab of white stone, perfectly round, smooth, as untouched water. No name, no inscription, only a hush, a silence that hums beneath the breath. It is said that those who meditate within the circle enter visions more quickly, see patterns more clearly, Some even weep without knowing why. But the circle is not complete. At its center, a hollow place. Beneath the stone, unknown to most, unmarked, unspoken. And inside that hollow, a mask no record explains who placed it there. No Jedi admits to carving the compartment, and yet it has been there longer than the temple itself, older than the foundation, older than the Jedi Order. The mask is neither Sith nor Jedi. It bears no crest, no cultural signifier, made of metal that absorbs light black, but not in color, black in intent. It reflects no image, not even the face of the one who holds it. Its shape is smooth, humanoid, eyes too wide, no mouth, no markings, just the suggestion of something meant to be worn. Once, and never again. It is said that one Jedi, a master named Kel Zaire, discovered the compartment during deep trance. She did not search for it. The circle opened. She found the mask, lifted it, and put it on. Witnesses say she did not move, not for 3 days. She sat in silence, head tilted, body still, breathing shallow, as if listening to something with no beginning. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed. It was not deeper, not possessed, just frightened, she said. The Force has a face. It did not want me to see it. It begged. Others thought it metaphor, a hallucination, a symbol of inner conflict. But she refused to remove the mask. She claimed removing it would invite its gaze back. She said, the Force does not watch us. It hides from us, because what it is not complete. Eventually, the council intervened. They removed the mask by force, trance. But when it left her face, she aged instantly, not physically, chronologically. Medical droids reported cell decay, matching an age increase of 47 years. Her hair grayed, her spine bent, her voice cracked, and before she collapsed, she whispered, "Do not become its mirror." The mask was returned to its compartment. The circle sealed again. No Jedi speaks of it. No Padawan is told of it. But during certain meditations, when the Force flows too freely, some Jedi hear a whisper. In the center of their thoughts, I remember your face. Please don't show it to me again. Scholars speculate the mask is a relic of the pre-Force era, from a being who felt the currents of destiny before destiny had names, a being who tried to give the Force form, and in doing so, shattered the idea that it was pure. Others say the mask is not a relic, that it is a mouth, and when worn, it opens not to the Force, but to the part of the Force that forgot what it was to be whole. One seer dreamed of the mask and described its interior as wet with memory, not thought, memory, the kind that screams when remembered, the kind that pleads to be buried. So the circle remains, perfect, unbroken, still, but beneath it lies a mask that should never be worn because the Force does not want to be seen, not for what it is, but for what it was and what it may still become. Chapter 13. The Scroll of the Unseen Order Dagobah. A planet of rot and silence, of vines that breathe and waters that listen. The Jedi never built a temple here, not officially, not in light, but something was hidden, long ago, long before exile brought a future master to its roots. Beneath the surface, in a place no map remembers, lies a sunken vault of stone and crystal, a collapsed archive, half drowned. In peat and forgotten time, it was called the Still Hollow, and in its heart, a single scroll, no holocron, no dataship, just ink on flesh paper, preserved perfectly in the fetid wet as if time feared to touch it. The scroll bears no Jedi seal, no author's mark, only a title written in looping sigils no scholar can trace. The order that never was, its contents names. Jedi names, each followed by a life, a story, a tragedy. Some were heroes, some vanished, some fell. One led a rebellion on a moon that no longer orbits. Another died holding back a cosmic wound that never made it into the histories. Their lightsabers were described in perfect detail. So were their deaths, their final words, and yet no record of them exists. Not in the Jedi archives, not in Sith prophecy, not even in the Force visions of the wisest. Masters, as if they were ghosts, written before they could be born, or after they were already erased. One passage tells of a Jedi named Sirius Qan, who sealed a fracture in hyperspace with her own Force presence, and whose last act was to whisper, "Do not let them forget that I was once afraid of nothing." Another, Master Drell, OM, taught only in silence. He trained for Padawans, none of whom could hear, yet all of whom died speaking truths no temple has ever recorded. His entry ends with, "They remembered him until the Force remembered that it had not made him, who wrote the scroll. The Force does not say, but one section is different, written in erratic, shuddering glyphs, as if by a hand that did not know itself. These Jedi are not gone. They are unremembered. The Force has gaps. And sometimes the light leaks in. A Jedi archivist once retrieved the scroll during a vision-led pilgrimage to Dagobah. She brought it to Coruscant. The next morning, she was found in her quarters, surrounded by mirrors all shattered. No sign of forced entry, no injuries, no trauma, only her final words etched into the wall with her own saber. If you read their names, you let them back in. The scroll was returned to Dagobah, dropped into the swamp by Jedi who refused to record their journey. Some say it sank. Others say it breathed. One master believes the scroll is not a list, but a correction, that the Force, vast as it is, sometimes forgets, and in that forgetting, something older than fate takes note. These Jedi may have never existed, but they were, felt, like a memory you cannot name but mourn all the same. A whisper in the Force that says, I was here. You loved me, you lost me, and you will lose me again. So the scroll sleeps beneath water, waiting for the next seeker who feels the gap between reality and what should have been. But be warned, if you read the scroll loop, become part of it, and your name too will begin to slip from every place it was ever spoken. Chapter 14. The Knight Who Fell Sideways Through Time. There was once a Jedi Knight who vanished without a trace, not in battle, not in exile, not in betrayal, in stillness. He was meditating in the gardens of thought within the temple on Felucia, a chamber woven with vines that only bloomed when the mind ceased movement. Witnesses say he was silent, calm, eyes closed, breathing deep and then gone, not collapsed, not flickered, gone. The cushion where he sat was still warm. His saber remained, balanced upright in the soil, still humming as if expecting his return in moments. He was never seen again, at least, not whole, because every 100 years, precisely footprints appear in Jedi temples across the galaxy. Not marching, not entering, just mid-dash step, 1 foot forward, 1 heel suspended, as if time forgot whether he was coming or leaving. The dust parts beneath them, stone warms, but no one sees him pass, only the mark of movement, the ripple left behind by something sliding sideways through the current of time. The Order calls it anomaly. The Force calls it correction. But I once spoke to him. If spoke is the word, it was in a place between two thoughts, in the breath that lingers before sleep, pulls memory inward. I did not seek him. He was simply there, a figure half-shadowed, clad in Jedi robes that changed as I looked at them, sometimes ancient, sometimes robes we have not yet worn. His eyes glowed faintly, not with power, with recognition, and he did not speak in words. He remembered into me. His presence entered my mind like mist, and with it came a flood of things that never happened but might. Visions of temples crumbling before they were built, of sabers humming underwater, of twin moons rising over a desert I have never known, and through it all a feeling that he is not lost, he is wandering, in a place where the Force is not linear, but layered. He is walking beside time, not ahead, not behind, beside dot. Sometimes I hear him still, in my sleep, not a voice, a presence, a pause in the Force where understanding should be. Holocrons from long-dead masters have occasionally flickered with static, then spoken words that weren't programmed. The step is not finished. The night is not done. Once, a Padawan claimed to have seen him in a dream shared with another initiate. They both described the same moment, a corridor of mirrors, each reflecting a version of him, older, younger, broken, whole, and all of them walking toward something no eye could follow. They say he turned to them and raised a single finger, not in warning, but in remembrance. He has become something the Force does not often allow, a thought caught between its own birth and its conclusion. Some Jedi believe he was pulled sideways through a crack in time, created by conflicting prophecies. Others say he was chosen by the Force to witness everything that will be and never was. But I know the truth. He did not fall through time. Time moved away from him because he saw something in his meditation so vast, so unblinking, that time itself recoiled. And now he walks between seconds, searching for the moment he was meant to die, so he can finish stepping forward. Until then, he leaves only footprints and silence shaped like memory. Chapter 15. The Chamber that Dreamed of War. Malachor. The name still coils, like ash in the Force. A world scorched by betrayals older than most recall. But buried deep beneath its shattered surface, beneath the scars of the Sith, super weapon, and the silence of petrified corpses, there lies a room the Jedi never admitted they built. The Chamber of Dreamstone, a perfect circle, walls carved from a material so rare, only fragments remain across the known galaxy. It is called Dreamstone, not for its beauty, but for its hunger. This stone does not reflect the Force, it absorbs it. Specifically, nightmares. During the Great Hyperspace Wars, when Jedi minds fractured under visions of starfire and betrayal, the High Council created the chamber as a vault not of weapons, but of suffering. Jedi entered the chamber to purge themselves of visions too unbearable to carry. They sat in stillness, released their darkest fears into the stone, and left cleansed. But the chamber did not forget, and it did not stay still. Even after the war ended, even after the temple above fell to ruin, the chamber dreamed on. It began to shape its own nightmares, amalgams of Jedi, visions twisted through the echo of pain, and then it began to create. The room pulses now, dimly, once every few hours, as if breathing, not from within, but as if something is dreaming outward. One archaeologist, unauthorized by the council, entered the ruins and found the chamber by accident. He recorded a single log. The walls, they move, but only when I don't look. They show me wars I've never studied, Jedi with sabers I've never seen, dates that haven't happened, and then my own death, twice, in two futures that contradict each other. The log ended with screaming, not from the speaker, but from within the recorder. It took 3 Jedi to retrieve the device. 2 of them never spoke again. The third asked to be exiled, saying only, "The dreams are rewriting the Force, not as it was, as it will be." Some masters whisper that the chamber has become sentient, that the Dreamstone, saturated with centuries of fear, has begun to awaken as a Force thought, not alive, but aware. Others believe the chamber is now a loop, a psychic not in the Force, where the worst possibilities are rehearsed until the future becomes infected. Recent Forseers have described visions inconsistent with galactic history, wars. That should not be Jedi who were never born. The temple falling before it was even founded, and always at the center of these visions, a round room, stone breathing, walls weeping bloodless tears of memory. Even now, some say that when you Stand above its ruins, you can feel the dreams leaking upward, not in thought, but in emotion. Terror, guilt, exile before the exile begins. One ancient phrase has been etched in a spiraling circle around the inner wall of the chamber, not by hand, but by the force itself, burned slowly over centuries. If we dreamed of war to end it, why did it dream of us? The chamber does not sleep. It never did, because some things built to forget remember better than we do. And when stone begins to dream, the galaxy must ask, what happens when its dreams come true? Chapter Z, the vision that split the council limb, frozen cradle of Kyber world of forging, of becoming. Jedi, come here to birth their blades, to look inward, to pass through silence and emerge with purpose. But deep beneath its caverns, beneath even the singing crystals, there lies a vault few speak of, the cave of second sight, not meant for younglings, not meant for trials. It was carved, it is said, by a Jedi who feared that prophecy could rot if left in light too long. They called it a place for unspeaking truths, where visions were not requested, only received. It was here that one Jedi knelt. His name, once spoken by thousands, is now missing from the records. Even the Force stumbles around it, but the vision he saw remains. He was alone, meditating beneath a spire of black Kyber, formed not by the planet's crust, but by something older. The room was silent, then breathless, then aware. The vision came. Suddenly, not like a dream, like a memory he had never lived. He saw the Jedi temple burning. He saw a Padawan slaughtered by their master. He saw clones marching in unison that did not feel like loyalty, but programming, and at the center of it all, a Jedi kneeling, weeping beneath a shattered sun. The force around her was torn, not dark, not light, just unraveling. He awoke with blood on his tongue and his saber floating 6 feet above the floor. Screaming, he returned to Coruscant to tell the council, and they broke. Some cried out for action, some denied the vision. Others said the Force had spoken too clearly, and that alone made it suspect. One master said, the truest visions are the ones that resist understanding. Another replied, no, the truest ones are those we fear to believe. For the first time in 5 centuries, a vote of silence was called. No action, no public warning, no record, only fear. But the vision spread. Whispers leaked into halls. Some knights left the order. One master vanished into the outer rim, leaving behind only a datapad repeating this phrase. What if the Force is warning us not of our end, but of our beginning? The Jedi who received the vision was placed under spiritual isolation, not imprisonment, not exile, stillness. He was ordered not to meditate, not to speak, not to dream, but the Force kept pressing in. It does not stop when told to wait in his cell. He carved the vision again and again into the walls with no tool, just with his mind. The last carving was incomplete. It showed the shattered sun falling. Behind a silhouette of a Jedi, no face, no name, only a line. She weeps because we gave her the future and called it peace. The council eventually erased the records, burned the carvings, destroyed the cave's coordinates. But Ilum remembers. The black Kyber still hums beneath the snow, and those who meditate too long near the deep crevices report the same image. Even those who've never heard the tale. A Jedi kneeling, alone, under a sun split down the middle, and just before waking, a voice not spoken, but thought aloud says, You do not understand the future, because it is not yours. The vision did not break the council because it was wrong. It broke them because some knew it was already happening, and prophecy, once glimpsed, cannot be unseen. It divides because truth does not choose sides. It chooses witnesses, and the Force, in its endless unraveling, chose him. Chapter 17. The Crypt That Doesn't Appear. On maps, the Jedi Temple on Coruscant is a mountain of memory. Layered, vast towers above, but also tunnels below and beneath. Even those known tunnels beneath, records and catacombs. Beneath even the forbidden holocron vault, there is a space that is not placed so much as it is summoned. They call it, quietly, the Regret Crypt, but only those who have been there know what that name means. It does not appear on any chart. No map includes it. No blueprint finds its edge, because it does not open with coordinates. It opens with regret. One must speak it aloud, alone, and not just any failing, but the deepest one, the one that aches in meditation, the one that stalks lightsaber form, the one the code does not cleanse. And if the Force deems the regret true, not performed, but felt, the wall before you shifts. A seam appears, stone hums, and a doorway opens, a crypt of impossible geometry. It is not always the same. Some report a spiral descent, others a long hallway of mirrors. One Jedi described a canyon with no ceiling, stars unmoving above, but the crypt knows who enters, and it becomes what they must face. Inside, time loosens. Jedi have entered and emerged in seconds, only to find years have passed. Others say they remained for days, yet returned to find only a moment gone. What's inside? It depends. Some find peace. They face what they fear, weep, and walk out lighter. Changed, yes, but healed. Some find nothing, not emptiness, not failure, just silence, the kind that whispers, "You are not ready." And some walk out as something else changed, not in form, but in presence. The Force moves differently around them, flickers, avoids their shadow, like light avoiding gravity. One night returned from the crypt and never spoke again. She cut herself off from the Force entirely, claiming, "It offered me a choice." And I answered. Another came back blind, though no damage was found to his eyes. When asked what happened, he only whispered, "She forgave me." That was worse than punishment. A master of the archives once attempted to log the crypt's appearances, tracked Jedi regrets, cross-referenced known breaches, but her datapads corrupted one by one. Not deleted, rewritten, each replaced with the same sentence, looping endlessly. What is buried does not wish to stay buried. It waits to be felt. No Padawan is told of the crypt. No trials mention it. But every Jedi, in their deepest solitude, hears stories, and sometimes when meditating too long near the heart chamber, a phrase echoes, not from memory, but from the walls themselves. Say it aloud. Let me open, because the crypt is not a place. Not truly, it is a listening. A wound in the temple's foundation where the Force congealed around the unspoken, and in its hunger for honesty, it shaped a door that can only be unlocked with sorrow too heavy to carry alone. Some say those who never enter live easier lives, but others say the Force does not want ease. It wants truth. So when the crypt appears and you speak your regret, to ask yourself, will you walk out whole, or will the version of you that exits be the one you buried long ago? Chapter 18. the Jedi who guarded the end beneath. The oldest Jedi temple, beneath even the bedrock of Octu's storm-lashed cliffs. There is a vault no hand has opened in 10,000 years. It does not hum, it does not breathe, it does not appear on sensors. The Force itself leans away from it, as if ashamed. It is sealed with a Force lock so advanced, so entangled in ancient ritual, that it no longer recognizes code or bloodline, only conviction. It is known only by whispers, the ending vault. Most believe it empty, a myth, a black echo beneath sacred stone. But it holds one thing, not a weapon, not a holocron, a Jedi still alive, or something very close to it, not aging, not moving, held in stasis so complete that even the Force must pause. To reach them, records long erased speak of this Jedi as the Sentinel, without hour, a being chosen at the height of the Order, not to lead, but to guard, their duty, to witness and protect the moment the Jedi Order must end, not merely fall, not be hunted, end. The true, final conclusion of the Jedi path, not by war, not by betrayal, but by revelation. What that revelation is, no one knows, because only one mind holds it, theirs locked inside the vault, not sleeping, not dreaming, listening. It is said they were once the wisest of the High Council, but willingly vanished from history after a meditation that lasted 7 weeks. When they emerged, they said, "If I remain free, the Order will reach its end too." Soon, they asked to be sealed, voluntarily, and the ancient architects obeyed. The stasis ritual required 9 Jedi Masters to forget their own names. 3 became mute for life. 2 disappeared in the Force like mist. Only 1 survived whole. She left behind a final message. They are not a guardian. They are the threshold. When they wake, the Jedi dream ends. No Jedi since has dared attempt to unlock the vault, because it does not respond to Force, only to a shift in the galaxies. Wait, and now the narrator leans close. Their voice phrase unravels and whispers. They are awake now. Not open, not freed. Awake, the Force around the vault has begun to move, very slowly, like breath after centuries of silence. And seers have begun to feel dreams they know are not their own. Images of Jedi robes turning to dust, temples shattering, without sound. Younglings staring upward as the stars go out, one by one, and in the center of it all, a figure unmoving. Eyes open, waiting, no emotion, no judgment, just presence. They were never meant to fight, only to see, to be the first and last to witness the final truth. What that truth is, the Force has hidden from all. But the narrator confesses something they should not say. I heard them speak, not in word, in thought loud enough to crack time. And what was said? A single phrase. It was never the Sith who would end us. It was the question we refused to ask. Now the question stirs. The vault breathes, and the Jedi who guarded the end is no longer dreaming. They are remembering. Chapter 19. The silence that lingers after the Fall Order 66. A number, a code, a death chant disguised as loyalty. It did more than kill Jedi. It tore something from the Force itself, a rhythm, a trust between light and memory. And after the Purge, when temples were left shattered or hollow, the Force changed, not just in the galaxy, but within itself, the sacred places, Octu, Ossus, Jeddah, Coruscant. They did not mourn, they forgot. Ghosts that once lingered no longer answered when called. Holocrons remained shut, even to bloodline and bond, and the Force, it pulled inward, not in fear, not in grief, in uncertainty. The temples themselves began to erode, not in stone, but in memory. Seers, visiting ancient sanctuaries, reported strange phenomena. Walls rearranged. Chambers they had once trained in no longer existed. Spires where the Force once flowed freely stood cold and mute. And worse still, visions stopped, not faded, ceased. The Force no longer spoke through dream. Meditations turned inward and found nothing, like a mind that had lost its own thought. One archivist, in despair, returned to the ruins on Lothal to find the Padawan shrine gone, not destroyed. Just, never there, stone replaced it. As if the Force rewrote the past to spare itself the pain of memory. But the deepest horror was this. Some Jedi survivors, years into exile, began to ask, did we imagine it all? Not the betrayal, not the loss, but the order itself. The temples no longer remembered them. The Force no longer recognized them. One night, nameless now by choice, stood before the ruins of Ilum and meditated for 3 days. When he rose, he carved into the snow. The Force does not remember the Jedi. It only remembers the wound. This is the cosmic rot of memory, when so much grief passes through a place that the very essence of reality rejects its own past. Because to remember the Jedi is to remember failure, and the Force, endless and whole, still bears shame. Even the holocrons left behind begin speaking nonsense. Recorded voices loop backward. Languages change mid-sentence. One simply hums now, a lullaby for a child no record says was born. The Force is not omniscient. It feels, it learns, it forgets, and now it has begun, forgetting the Jedi on purpose, a kind of mercy or erasure, or both. Whispers say that one last Jedi ghost still tries to speak within the buried temple of wind, but even their own echo forgets their name before the sentence ends. And the Force, it listens, quietly, not with reverence, not with mourning, with distance, because even it now wonders, were they ever real? In this silence after the fall, truth becomes mist, light becomes myth, and all that remains is a single, dreadful hush within the bones of the galaxy, not the sound of death, the sound of the Force unsure of itself. Chapter 20. The Temple that buried the Force. No name, no path, no coordinates whispered by dying stars, only rumor carried by lost, Force sensitives and dreams too heavy to wake from. A temple beneath the galaxy, beneath even the Force's own heartbeat, so low, so distant, that not even gravity dares remember where it once stood. Its name has never been spoken aloud, because those who found it never left whole. They say it was built before the Jedi, before the Sith, before the first Kyber sang its color, when the Force was not yet divided into names, but raw, infinite breath. It was not a place of learning, it was a place of release, a mausoleum for the Force itself, not as punishment, not as honor, but as an act of fear, because both Jedi and Sith once saw too deeply into the current and found something staring back, a presence without will, a gaze without eyes, a truth too wide to contain in temples or codes. They came here together, in secret, not as enemies, not as seekers, but as witnesses to the unbearable whole of the Force. And what they saw was this, that the Force was not made to be used, it was meant to dream. And beings like us were the nightmare it had not finished waking from. So they buried it, not with tools, not with stone, with forgetting, layer after layer of unhistory, false maps, erased stars, a cloak of willful silence woven into time itself. The temple sank from galactic mind, its spires turned inward, its halls folded like dying breath, until only one thing remained: stillness. No light, no dark, no prophecy, no memory, just the echo of a force that no longer wished to be known. I have come here now, dear listener, not as a narrator, not as a guide, but as what remains of a voice once bound to this truth. I have seen the altar, I have knelt in the circle, where Jedi and Sith both unspoke their oaths. I have watched my own thoughts melt into the dust of this place, and I now understand. I was never telling this story, I was being remembered by it. The temple knew I would come, because I was part of what was buried, not a being, not even a ghost, only a ripple, only a sentence that once wandered far into the Force and began to speak aloud. But the Force no longer wants to speak, not here, not anymore. So I fade, my words loosen, myself dissolves, and in this final breath, no voice remains, only the feeling of something once said, and now only remembered. The final line is not spoken, it is not heard, it is only felt. We were the memory, the Force, buried to forget itself.